The day R.F. Rahman was humiliated in broad daylight. He had no idea the man digging through scrap beside him was silently deciding his future. The sun burned high over the crowded marketplace, heat rising from the pavement in trembling waves. And in that harsh daylight, truth has a way of revealing itself. Sometimes it reveals weakness. Sometimes it reveals greatness. If you believe in kindness and second chances, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Life Spark Stories. Because stories like this remind us that character is worth more than gold. R.F. had never been ashamed of hard work. After losing his father at 19, he had become the backbone of his small family. By day, he repaired broken electronics in a narrow shop tucked between a tea stall and a tailor's booth. The shop sign was faded, the fan inside squeaked with every rotation, and the shelves were stacked with old radios, cracked tablets, and wires tangled like forgotten dreams. But R.F. carried himself with quiet dignity. He was engaged to Zoya Siddiqui, a bright schoolteacher with hopeful eyes and a laugh that softened even his hardest days. The only shadow looming over their love was Zoya's father, Hamid Siddiqui, a self-made millionaire known across the city for his real estate empire and sharp business instincts. Rumors said Hamid valued wealth above all else. People whispered that he would never allow his daughter to marry a struggling repairman. R.F. had heard the whispers. He felt them in the way strangers looked at him when they learned who he was engaged to. Yet he never once considered stepping away from Zoya. Love, to him, was not a transaction. One scorching afternoon, as the market buzzed with customers and vendors shouting prices, an elderly scrap dealer appeared near R.F.'s shop. The man's clothes were dusty, his beard untrimmed, and he pushed a rattling cart filled with dented metal and discarded parts. He asked shop owners for broken items they no longer needed. Most waved him away impatiently. When he reached R.F.'s door, a group of well-dressed men happened to be standing nearby, discussing property investments loudly enough for everyone to hear. The scrap dealer politely asked if R.F. had any useless scraps to spare. Before R.F. could respond, one of the suited men laughed and said something cruel about how scrap belongs with scrap, glancing mockingly at R.F.'s tiny shop. The words hung in the air, sharp and humiliating. Customers turned their heads. R.F. felt the sting, but instead of reacting with anger, he calmly stepped outside. He offered the old man a bottle of cold water from his own fridge and began sorting through a box of broken circuits, handing over pieces that could still be recycled. He even helped lift the heavier metal parts into the cart, sweat beading across his forehead under the relentless sun. The suited men watched, amused. R.F. ignored them. He spoke gently to the scrap dealer, asking about his health and whether the heat was too much. He insisted the man sit in the shade for a few minutes before moving on. There was no performance in his kindness, no audience he sought to impress, just simple humanity in the middle of a noisy market. What R.F. did not know was that the scrap dealer was not who he seemed. Beneath the dust and worn sandals stood Hamid Siddiqui himself. For weeks, Hamid had wrestled with doubt about the young man who wanted to marry his daughter. Wealth had taught him to distrust charm and sweet promises. He had built his empire by testing people, by watching who they were when no benefit was in sight. So he devised a plan. He would approach R.F. not as a millionaire, but as someone society overlooked. That afternoon, Hamid had seen everything he needed to see. He had seen a young man insulted publicly, yet choosing grace over pride. He had seen generosity given without calculation. He had seen respect offered to someone believed to be poor and powerless. The next morning, in the clear brightness of day, a fleet of black cars stopped outside R.F.'s modest shop. The entire market froze. From the first car stepped Hamid Siddiqui, impeccably dressed, his presence commanding immediate silence. R.F. stepped outside, confusion flickering across his face as he recognized Zoya's father. Hamid looked at him for a long moment, then did something no one expected. He folded his hands respectfully and lowered his head slightly in acknowledgement. In front of the same shop owners and the same suited men from the day before, he announced that the young man they had mocked had passed a test of character greater than any business exam. He revealed that he had been the scrap dealer, and that kindness shown to a stranger mattered more to him than bank balances or status. The market buzzed with shock. The suited men avoided eye contact. RF stood speechless, overwhelmed not by the approval of a millionaire, but by the realization that integrity had spoken louder than humiliation. Hamid placed his hand on RF's shoulder and declared that he would proudly welcome him into the family. He promised to support the expansion of RF's repair business, not as charity, but as investment in a man whose values were unshakable. In that bright daylight, under the same sun that had witnessed his embarrassment, RF felt something shift. Not his financial status, but his faith that goodness is never wasted. Zoya later said she had always known the kind of man RF was, but that day, the whole market knew it too. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that true wealth lies in compassion, please like, share, and comment to let us know. And special request, comment the word integrity if you believe character is more powerful than money. Your engagement helps Life Spark Stories bring more meaningful stories to light.